Hey everybody, in today's video, I'm going to be going over my top 5 most shocking physiques of all time. While there were many crazy physiques over the timeline of bodybuilding, I think these 5 had the craziest physiques when they touched the stage. I mean, the world was really in awe when they saw these guys posing. I mean, I was too. I think you guys will really like this video, and this is more so of a fun video rather than a comparison, really. If you guys are unhappy with where I put these guys in the top 5, don't be, because I think that they could definitely be interchanged, a lot of them. In the fifth place, and starting out our list, is Dorian Yates' 1993 Mr. Olympia version. In 1991, Dorian Yates actually placed second in his first ever Mr. Olympia to Lee Haney, and in 1992, when Lee Haney retired, Dorian Yates took the opportunity and won his first Mr. Olympia title. So in 1993, Dorian Yates released his 6-week out prep photos of the Mr. Olympia that year, and he looked incredible. And you guys can see in the posing video on screen that he looked ridiculous. I mean, his conditioning was off the charts, never seen before with the amount of mass that he carried on his frame. I mean, he had the best back seen on any man up until that point. I mean, Lee Haney had an amazing back, probably beating Dorian in 1991 in the back department, but by 1993, nobody stood a chance with Dorian Yates' back. And Dorian Yates had some amazing arms, and this year, I mean, they weren't torn. They were good. They were very good. His midsection was in check. Everything was just popping on him. Before anyone says anything in the comments like, Dorian Yates should be higher up or whatever, just remember I'm using his 1993 Mr. Olympia footage rather than his 6-week out prep photos. If I were using those, he would definitely be higher, but I don't think his presentation here was as crazy as anyone else on the list, but I will say very influential to the sport of bodybuilding. I mean, he ushered in a new level of mass and conditioning, and for that reason alone, he deserves to be on this freaky top 5 most mind blowing physiques list. In fourth place, I have Jay Cutler's 2009 version, and I feel that this version of his was one of the craziest physiques to ever touch the stage, not only because of how good he was, but because of how dominant he was that night. I mean, he had just lost the Olympia in 2008 to Dexter Jackson, and he was coming back to regain his title, and that he did. He did that in such a dominant fashion, and I feel like for that alone, he deserves to be on this list. But speaking more so about the physique itself, Jay Cutler presented amazing quads this year. I mean, the lighting only helped, but you guys all know his famous quad stomp, right? I mean, that photo is crazy. He had striations through every single head of the quad. His quad itself, I mean, it was just ridiculous, guys. His leg was diced. His hamstrings were crazy. His glutes, I mean, for Jay Cutler, his glutes were crazy that year. His upper body was phenomenal. His arms didn't look too bad. His back, which had been deteriorating, really did not look bad this year either. It was grainy, dry. There were striations everywhere. He looked great this year, and I think he really presented a very dominant package. A lot of people, argue whether or not 2009 defeated his 2001 appearance. And I like to think that, they were pretty equal, but his 2009 version was more dominant in terms of the lineup. Like, just think about it, guys. Sure, 2001, everyone was so shocked how good Jay Cutler had become that year and how great he looked. But in 2009, he was a different beast, guys. I mean, his physique really shined with that lighting. He had striations everywhere, like I mentioned before. I mean, he dethroned the Mr. Olympia of the year prior, Dexter Jackson. I mean, that's just insane to me. So that's why he really does deserve to be on the list. In the third spot, I have Phil Heath's 2011 version. One of his craziest versions, probably his most aesthetic, Mr. Olympia winning version, and one of the most impressive physiques the world of bodybuilding has ever seen. I mean, there's a reason he's on this list, right, guys? In 2011, Phil Heath came in with just some crazy conditioning, crazy full muscle bellies, 3D muscle bellies that really nobody ever had. Maybe Kevin Levrone had them, but not to the extent of Phil Heath. Phil Heath had this 3D round muscle all over him. I mean, the chest, the quads, even the calves, the shoulders, the arms, the back. The back was just one of his most dominant body parts, as many of you guys know, throughout his whole career. And here, it looked great. I mean, his tiny midsection looked rather aesthetic. His arms were just huge, and you guys can see it through the video. I mean, look how separated his arms look. Look how separated his back looks. Look at his glutes, hamstrings, the quads. everything is on point and perfect. I mean, his symmetry has never been better and never was better, in my opinion, again. And he just looked great. I mean, who do you think would beat this physique, guys, apart from anyone else on this list potentially? I mean, that's how good he was that night. And I really do think that whenever there's a bodybuilder so dominant to where you kind of know that they're going to be ushering in a new reign, like a new change of guards, I guess you could say, a new era of bodybuilding, you know they've got to be on a list like this. I mean, Phil Heath, what he presented at the 2011 Mr. Olympia was honestly never seen before. I mean, just like how Dorian Yates brought in that crazy mass and conditioning, Phil Heath brought in this 3D round muscle bellies that were, definitely seen before on some people, like I mentioned, Kevin, but not to this level. 3D muscle everywhere, conditioning everywhere, rock hard everywhere. I mean, he was crazy, guys. And for that reason, he's on this list in the third place spot. But the next two guys, I honestly think they're on another level. So stay tuned for them right now. So you guys might be surprised that Ronnie Coleman 2003 isn't in the first place spot. And that's for a good reason. The guy who's in the first place spot probably is a lot more freaky and crazy than Ronnie Coleman's 2003 version, which is, honestly hard for me to say because I do think that Ronnie Coleman's '03 version was one of the best, probably the best. But when you guys see the footage, and many of you have from the next guy, you guys might agree with me too. But I think both these guys could definitely be interchanged 100%. So you guys have maybe noticed that this monstrosity of a man has been posing in front of you for the last 30 seconds. And what even was this, guys? That's all I can say. How ridiculous is this? I mean, he looked like an alien. He looked like a freak in the best way possible, that is. I mean, everyone who was there in 2003 knows that he just smoked the entire lineup. Jay Cutler, who had taken off the year prior to, get better to try to dethrone Ronnie, just had no chance. I mean, Ronnie Coleman in 2002, he was not really that good. He had lost a lot of weight, come down to a very low weight that he probably hadn't been at in a long time. So he didn't really look too good. So he was trying to prove to the world that he was still this top bodybuilder. And wow. I mean, that's all I can say, guys. He did that. He did that by miles, by light years. He was the most insane bodybuilder that night, probably that the world had ever seen, except for the guy coming up, that is. But his arms were huge. His back was crazy. His glutes, what even were his glutes, guys? I mean, they looked like an alien creature in and of itself. His chest was great. His midsection didn't look too bad. His legs were phenomenal. I mean, Ronnie Coleman really had it all that night. I mean, he was a combination of all the past three guys, but just on steroids, which is kind of funny to say because obviously all these guys are on steroids. But I mean, he was just crazy. I'm sorry. I mean, lack of vocabulary, but that's the only way I can put it, guys. I mean, he had the back, he had the arms, the chest, the legs. He had everything you could possibly ever want. And you guys may be wondering, how can someone even top this? How is that even possible? But wow, we're going to get into that right now. So, for the first place spot in the most freakiest, shocking, most mind blowing, dominant physiques the world has ever seen that ever graced the bodybuilding stages, we have the 2002 Marcus Rule. Before I get into Marcus Rule, just remember that this is a top 5 most shocking bodybuilders list, not a top 5 or top 10 best bodybuilders list of all time. Now, the first thing that I think of when I look at this guy is what are his biceps? I mean, you guys might have seen already, but look at those bicep peaks. I mean, wow. And when he turns around, his back looks crazy. I wouldn't fault you for thinking that Marcus Rule had the best back of all time just based on this video footage. Now, I will say that Marcus Rule, of course, never had the same, effect that any of the other guys ever had in terms of their bodybuilding careers. However, singling out this one performance really makes you guys realize how crazy he was. Take him as a whole, not that crazy of a bodybuilder. Night of Champions 2002, what even is this? Is this Mr. Olympia? I don't know. I mean, is he the best bodybuilder of all time? No. Most freaky? In my opinion, yes. Just to drive my point home a little bit further, this guy really reminds me of like a horror movie antagonist who has a chainsaw running after me. I mean, I feel scared. I would feel scared watching him on stage just because of how freaky he is. He really drives home that freak factor. And I really think you guys can notice that too. I mean, the lighting at the show, the video footage makes him look extra grainy and conditioned. And overall, just wow, I'm very impressed with the freakiness of this man. And for that reason, I think he's going to be winning this competition. So that does it for my top 5 most shocking physiques of all time list. I will tell you guys that, regardless of if you agree with my placings or not, I think everyone can agree that these top 5 bodybuilders would be on anyone's list. I mean, who would you name to replace any single bodybuilder on the list? It's very hard to do so, if not impossible, because all 5 of these guys either ushered in a new wave of, bodybuilding, a new era of bodybuilding, or just brought a ridiculously freaky physique in a singular show, right? That's kind of how it works. I hope you guys enjoyed watching my video. I mean, I had a lot of fun rewatching all of these freaky bodybuilders again while making it. And maybe some of you guys are seeing these guys for the first time in this video. I remember when I first saw them, I was just blown out of my mind. I mean, I was like, what even are these guys? And, I hope even if you guys are seeing them for, the second, third, fourth time, I hope it still brings some sort of shock to you guys' day because of how crazy they were. So if you liked the video, please consider liking and subscribing. It really means a lot to me. And I hope I'll see you guys in the next video. Please comment down below what you guys thought. If you guys think there's any crazier bodybuilders out there, please let me know because maybe I'll make a, new list. But like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.